the biggest delusion I've ever. When I got into this field, I realized that psychology, what they're learning, psychologists, psychiatrists, they know nothing.
You're absolutely right.
It's controversial for me to say this, but what they're
you're so right though.
How
it's
can
so
someone
amazing.
how can someone sit down in front of a psychologist for 7 years and not get change?
That's right.
How can someone go there and be depressed their entire life? You're telling me that a chemical imbalance, in other words, a lack of ability to focus on the right things, is a disease for the rest of your life?
That's right, man.
And
that's amazing.
Oh yeah, no.
Isn't that like amazing?
Oh, it's incredible.
Yeah.
People come to me that have gone to psychiatrists and psychologists for years,
Yeah.
and in 5 minutes, they change their life, and they don't go back to depression. They get off their medication.
Yeah.
I don't tell them to get off their medication. They just see it. Because once they're not hypnotized anymore, they're out of it.
Where do you come from?
Yes, guys, I came across this very interesting interview and I thought I'll share it with the community. It's very interesting, very entertaining, very educating. It's an interview with a hypnotist. Jesse was interviewing a young hypnotist. Very interesting. They talked about so many things, even racism. They talked a little bit about politics, and I talked about, of course, about hypnotism and how hypnotism, how powerful it can be, and how the media, how the progressives, how the liberals are using hypnotism, to convince people and to deceive people about race and all whatnot. I want you to enjoy this interview. I hope you will enjoy, because I did. And if you're not subscribed to the channel, what are you waiting for? Hit the subscribe button and turn on the notification bell to get more videos like this. Without further ado, as usual, let's dive in.
I have with me Marcel Klein, and he is a successful coach and hypnotist. Marcel, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
First of all, I didn't know you were so young. I saw a video of you, but it just seemed like you were this young. You're 20?
Yeah,
20?
So I'm 21.
21.
Yeah. I'm probably one of the youngest people to do what I do.
And how did you get into hypnotizing people?
So hypnosis is one of the tools I use, but I went to my friend's school. He goes to San Diego State University. Well, he went there. And he invited me. He's like, hey, come over. And at the same night, they were having a hypnotist show, or a hypnosis show that night. And they called my friend up, and at the time he was not confident at all. Would not make eye contact with people, wouldn't even shake your hand. They call him up on stage. All of a sudden, the hypnotist hypnotizes the group. My friend gets hypnotized, does ridiculous things. I'm like, there's no way my friend would be able to even do that, fake that, because he's not confident enough to do it. And at the end, he says, I'm going to leave all of you off with an incredible sense of self-confidence and happiness. And he comes off stage, is incredibly confident, goes up to one of the prettiest girls in the entire room, tells me, hey, find a place to sleep. I'm like, what? And he ends up sleeping with her that night. And then he dated her for like a few months.
Wow.
And up until this day, he's one of the most confident guys I've ever met. So I said, okay, I need to learn this. And I realized that it's the quickest way to change someone's mindset.
Oh.
Yeah, so I started off as a dating coach, not anymore.
Oh, okay.
But when I started off at 16, because I kept getting my heart broken, and I'm like, okay, well, I need to figure out how people think, how women think. How can I prevent myself from getting my heart broken again? Because I kept doing the same things over and over and over again, and I got the same results. I'm like, I'm doing something wrong. And why is it these guys are able to date the most popular girls in high school, and I'm not? And I started to study it, and I started to change, and I'm like, okay, I have to be more confident. So I worked on my confidence, and after about 7 or 8 months of just being obsessed of how women think, how men think, the dynamic between men and women, I started to ask, people would ask me for advice, and every single time they'd ask me for advice, they would get the girl they wanted. And then I started charging them because I had so many people asking me. I'm like, let's make some money here.
Right.
So I started charging them money, and then girls would come ask me for advice, and then girls would do really well. And then I started to see their perspective. When I was 18, I saw this happen. I'm like, okay, well, let's learn hypnosis. This is cool. If I could snap my fingers and make men and women extremely confident, because that's one of the biggest issues for people. They can't approach people. They can't talk to people.
Especially men.
Yeah, especially men. Yeah. Especially men, yeah. They have, social anxiety is huge. They're afraid of rejection. And I'm like, well, if I could just eradicate that fear instantaneously, how much time could they save? I mean, what if, instead of waiting till they're 30 to get to this point, what if they could do it instantaneously? And then I became obsessed with figuring out hypnosis. I started studying it, and I just decided I'm going to be the best. Became way more confident that time and way more certain. And when I went up to this girl, I looked at her and I just said, I'm going to hypnotize you. And she's like, whoa, okay. And I hypnotized her, and I said, you're going to forget your name. And I said it with extreme certainty. I have it on video. And then I'm like, what's your name? And she's like, I know my last name, but she couldn't remember her first name. And I'm like, no way, I just hypnotized somebody. And then finally I realized that it has to do with my frame. Like how confident can I be when I do it? Because I was very uncertain. I've never done it, so it was difficult for me to actually get someone to believe that I could do it.
Right.
Because they'd be like, oh, you couldn't hypnotize me, and you could see that it would affect me. I would be like, oh, maybe I can't. And now, I mean, there's no one I can't hypnotize. I can hypnotize anyone, anywhere, anytime. And
Amazing.
Yeah.
I was in preparing for this interview. For some reason, I thought about it yesterday. I was thinking, wow, most people are hypnotized. They're already in a hypnotic
100%.
state. They're in a hypnotic state, but they don't know it.
Always.
Because I used to be in that hypnotic state, but I didn't know I was hypnotized.
Yep.
And it was only when I came out of it that I knew I was hypnotized. And so, and what allowed me to see that I was hypnotized is that I don't live in the future. I just live right now. And in that, I am not hypnotized. But if I thought about the past or the future, I would become unconscious.
Yeah, no, 100%. So we're on autopilot most of the day, 95% of the time.
Yeah.
But actually what's happening right now with a culture is that they're hypnotizing people to be losers.
Yeah,
They're,
absolutely.
Literally, I mean,
Yeah.
and I could tell you right now that the media, our culture, politicians, they're brainwashing, they're hypnotizing people
Yeah.
to hate each other, to be divided, to not believe that they can succeed, to believe that they need the government, to incite a bunch of fear. And that's why suicide rates are at an all-time high, depression rates are at an all-time high,
Yeah.
drug overdose rates are at an all-time high. And there are studies that show that 90% of antidepressants have no significant impact
Yeah,
over a
that's right.
placebo.
Yeah.
So the fact that they're even prescribing this medication, it's profit. That's the biggest problem. I'm not going to say, I can't legally tell anyone to stop doing drugs, and you
Right,
shouldn't. But what I can say is that the drugs that are being prescribed, like if you look at what it takes to be determined, like for someone to say, let's say I'm a psychiatrist, you're my patient. For me to say that you're clinically depressed, it's very easy for me to say that you are.
Yeah.
You don't sleep well that often, you don't always do the things you used to do. It's a very simple checklist that everybody might, from week to week, depending on how bad your week was, might go through. And if that week, for example, you had a bad week, you see a psychiatrist, you're not clinically depressed, they now prescribe medication to you, and then what?
Yeah.
For what?
So are they able to do it because if you go into a psychiatrist's office and you trust that person, are they able to hypnotize you because you trust them? So you're going to believe what they say?
Yes. So everything you believe becomes your reality.
Absolutely.
All a hypnotist does is makes you believe a
Absolutely,
different
yeah.
reality.
Yeah.
Now, as a psychiatrist, you believe that I'm an expert.
Yeah.
And because you believe I know what I'm talking about, if I tell you you're depressed and you believe me, you then become depressed.
That's deep. That is so true.
It's awful.
That is so true.
And they don't even know that.
I used to think that people with degrees, like doctor's degree, lawyer degree, a master degree,
Yep. Means
STD.
nothing. Means nothing.
It means nothing. It really don't. It's just that we think that it does.
Mm-hmm.
And so when these people get these degrees, we believe what they say,
Well,
and
you have
we
more
turn over
authority.
our life to them.
They're so it's the biggest delusion I've ever. When I got into this field, I realized that psychology, what they're learning, psychologists,
Yeah.
psychiatrists, they know nothing.
You're
It's
absolutely right.
It's controversial for me to say this, but what they're
You're so right, though.
how
It's
can
so amazing.
how can someone sit down in front of a psychologist for 7 years and not get change?
That's
How
right.
could someone go there and be depressed their entire life? You're telling me that a chemical imbalance, in other words, a lack of ability to focus on the right things, is a disease for the rest of your life?
That's right, man.
And
That's amazing.
oh yeah, no.
Isn't that like amazing?
Oh, it's incredible.
Yeah.
People come to me that have gone to psychiatrists and psychologists for years,
Yeah.
and in 5 minutes, they change their life, and they don't go back to depression. They get off their medication. I don't tell them to get off their medication. They just see it. Because once they're not hypnotized anymore, they're out of it. They're out of it.
Another thing, now that I'm listening to you, I'm thinking about other things that are happening in society, and I talk about this a lot on my radio show, is that, you know how when little kids are first born, they have a lot of energy, and they run
Yep.
around the place, they are interested in everything, they're learning. And nowadays, when they go to school, if the teacher doesn't want to can't handle all that energy, they tell the parent, oh, your kid is HTD.
ADD, ADHD, yeah.
Give him some medication, right?
Oh, my God.
And the parent would go and do it. I'm like, what the?
So this is the biggest thing. We have to realize
Isn't that like, you have to be hypnotized to do that.
the pharmaceutical industry has so much impact on politicians and curriculum that they literally will teach. Doctors don't know any difference. Psychiatrists don't know the difference. Psychologists don't know the difference. They're just learning the curriculum that's being funded by Big Pharma.
Absolutely, man.
In the 1970s.
You are so, that's amazing.
In the 1970s, some of the big, I forgot his name. But
Where do you come from?
I'm born and raised in LA, but the biggest thing I've always been a leader. I'm not a follower. I always, if someone says something to me, I fact check it. I don't believe it right away.
Yeah.
And I look around and all these people just believe everything everyone says. Oh, you should. I've never done drugs in my life. I don't drink alcohol.
You smoke pot?
No, never.
You never had pot?
Nope,
Here,
never.
let me see. I may have one.
No.
I smoked it already.
Yeah,
I'm
I believe that anything you can accomplish with drugs, you can do without drugs. Because by definition, so what a drug does is it replaces a neurotransmitter. For the most part, right? Especially antidepressants. They replace a neurotransmitter. You have neuroreceptors, which means that they receive a signal or a chemical from your brain, and then they process it. You have a transmitter that goes to a receptor, and then the receptor processes it. If I have 100 receptors, it by definition means I have 100 transmitters. What I do when I take medication is I then replace my transmitters, become dependent on the drug, and then all of a sudden am now attaching to the parts of my brain that were already there. The only reason drugs work is because you have the drug in your brain. Otherwise, they wouldn't work. You already have the biology in your brain that makes the drug work. But when you do it externally, it stops producing it internally, and now you have to rely on it from another source.
Wow. I don't know if you're going to agree with this or not.
Sure.
When I was growing up, there was no such word as racism. And I grew up on a plantation in Alabama under the Jim Crow laws and all that crap, right? Mm-hmm. But black people and white people didn't hate one another. Mm. And so even though
I agree with this 100%.
There was a Jim Crow law there, but it wasn't making people hate each other. They knew that it was some government thing that they had done, but it didn't mean that all white people were for it. And then along come the word racism. So-called black leaders and others started telling black people, white people racist, right?
Yep.
And I noticed that word hypnotized black people 70 years ago. Yep. And today it's even worse than ever. It's like they never came out of that hypnoptized situation. And so they believe something that exists that really doesn't exist.
And look at what's happening, right? Look at what's happening. Yeah. Statistically, 12% of the population, which is African Americans, commit more than 50% of the violent crime.
Yeah.
Not because they're wrong or it's genetic that they're violent, because the culture that they're in is hypnotizing them to believe that.
Absolutely, man.
And I think that leadership, Barack Obama was supposed to be the leader that united everybody.
The fallen Messiah.
He did the opposite.
Yeah.
He did the opposite.
I think I
don't get political, but I'll say it. I think he was the worst president ever.
Absolutely.
Ever. I mean, the economy was awful. The culture, more than anything, is what he messed up.
Yes.
He messed up the culture in a way that, look at this. We have a president right now, and whether people like him or not, I really don't care.
The Great White Hope.
Yeah.
But I call him the Great White Hope.
Look at what's
Did you know that?
I didn't know that.
Oh, yeah.
I love him.
The Great White Hope.
He's going to win again, by the way, because there aren't that many people in America that are stupid.
That's
but
right.
there's a large majority that's being hypnotized by the left. The left is controlling the media to make you think that he's misogynistic, to make you think he's racist. And there's nothing he said or done that Barack Obama didn't say or do. And everything they're blaming him for, they've done.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Russian collusion,
some
Ukraine.
People can't
they did
see that though because they're hypnotized.
They're hypnotized,
You're
and this is why they can't see it. I'll tell you why. We have a part of our brain called the reticular activating system, RAS. It tells you what to pay attention to. If you believe that Trump's a racist pig, if you believe he's only looking out to spew venom, if he's misogynistic, anything he says or does that's the opposite of that, your brain will delete, as if it never happened. Yeah. It'll ignore it. I could tell you right now,
so true.
It'll go in one ear out the other, because your brain's wired that way.
Yeah.
Because they're in a trance to hate him. And what the media is doing is they're not letting you think for yourself. They're creating all this fear. The first thing you see on the news, when you watch the news, do you ever feel good? No.
No,
they don't want you to feel good. They don't want you to feel good, because guess what they're going to do?
I don't believe them now.
I don't watch them at all. It's fake. But it's all fake. There's nothing they say that's accurate. It's all publicity. It's a business now. Yeah. But what they do is they'll incite a bunch of fear. They'll say something scary. North Korea, we're going to go to war, this, that, the other thing, scare you. Then because you're scared now, when you're scared, you're more suggestible. Your brain wants relief from fear, so it looks for guidance from some leadership or some authority that you trust to help you out of it. Because back in the day when we were in a tribe, if we were in a fight or flight situation, we would look to the leader of the tribe to help us get out of it. So when you're in fight or flight, you're looking for a way to change your beliefs. Something you're doing is threatening your life, so now your brain has to look for a way to get out of it. So they put you into fight or flight. They put you in fear, stress, anxiety. They put you in that state. and then they bombard you with all this negative opinion of our leadership, of our culture. They show you how police officers are just killing black people on the street, right? And then what this causes is this causes mass shootings, because then people start to hate other people and they start to literally divide, and it creates madness. It also causes people like Black Lives Matter, which don't actually care about black lives.
Right.
And you're black, you know this.
That's the ace of spades.
Yeah.
You're absolutely right. I tell people all the time, be careful what you believe.
Yeah.
Because if you believe a lie, you're going to be controlled by that lie and the people who cause you to believe it. So you really have to be careful what you believe.
People can't see through it. That's the thing. So someone watching this might even be like, oh, these guys are full of it. But the truth is, they are.
Yes.
Because you're literally, I mean, if you want control over your life, you have to realize that 99% of everything everyone says to you is a lie. It's a lie.
That's right, man.
And unless you could see it from your own eyes, right, and realize what thoughts were programmed into you versus what are your own, you're going to continue to run off of other people's programming. I can look at somebody and I could tell you right away, I could tell you if this person's in trance or not. I literally will walk on the street, I see people in this derp state, this trance state, and I'll put them in trance and then take their phone and see if I can get away with it. Make them forget about it. They walk away because they're still in trance. And then I walk up to them. I have a video of this on my Instagram. I walk up to a random guy, just hypnotize him, and take his phone, make him forget about it, goes to the store, and I'm like, oh, here's your phone, you dropped it. And I'm like, oh, you forgot that happened. Hey, can I show you something? I show him the video, and he's just, what the hell? He was angry that someone could just do that to him.
Yeah.
But I promise you, he wasn't in a trance state for long after.
So do you believe that human beings are in a fallen state?
Oh, 100%.
And what does that mean?
So it means that they are not able to tap into their potential because they have been programmed into this fallen state. They've been programmed to be limited because the way that they can be controlled is by not believing that they can have the power that they really have. If someone really believes that they can't do the things they want to do, and they need to depend on the government, they need to depend on other people, and at the very least, they need to go through the system, they need to be sheep. You need to go to college, pay us a bunch of money, to then have a bunch of debt, never make any real money in your life, potentially buy a okay house, and then retire at 65 to having not really that much money. If you buy into that, you're buying into this fallen state. You're buying into the ability to never tap into what could have been your potential. There's no such thing as there's only so many rich people in the world. There's enough money to go around for everybody.
Yeah,
it's just, you want to make the money. We're in the best country to do it.
Are you a Christian?
No, I'm Jewish, actually.
You're Jewish?
Yeah, I'm Jewish.
You don't look like a Jew.
I know, that's what everyone, even my mom says this to me.
I'm thinking maybe you're Arab or something like that.
Yeah, no.
Or Armenian or something like that.
My parents are both born in Israel, and I'm a first-generation American. But, you know, my mom's side is Spain, Morocco. My dad's side is Austria-Hungary.
Wow.
Yeah.
Would another Jew recognize you as a Jew?
Only if I put my necklace out. And I speak Hebrew fluently, so, I mean, if I speak Hebrew. But for the most part, probably not.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Isn't that like amazing?